Looking back at 35 centuries of Chinese history, our story seems but a grain of sand, whose first reflection gives us a glimpse of the art of the Shang dynasty, an age illuminated by recent archaeological excavations. Shang ceramic art, as exemplified by this clay jar, descended from China's Neolithic potteries. The incised designs are typical of its age. They are found on carved bones, as well as on carved tusks, and have a striking resemblance to early sin patterns. However, it is the ceremonial bronzes of Shang which merit primary artistic significance. These were created in the shapes of utensils, musical instruments, ornaments, and weapons. Who can tell us whether this vessel, with its human face and horns, serpentine body, front arms, and claws, was designed to ward off evil, or for the purpose of ancestor worship, or for the offering of wine to court the favor of Almighty Nature? The bronzes have come down to our age as things of great beauty, because kings and noblemen demanded the best from their craftsmen. They believed that the fortunes of their kingdoms and their people and offspring were associated with these sacred wares, which accompanied them even to the tombs. All the vessels have a monumental quality, though they vary greatly in forms and sizes. Set against fine spiral groundwork or other patterns are zoomorphic figures and heads. Shang's internal weakness invited the invaders from the west to found a new dynasty of Chao. Bronze art, however, suffered no interruption. Some of the early works of Chao can hardly be distinguished from that of the preceding rule. Types had not changed, nor the ornamental motifs. Remaining in full force was the oft-repeated mask of Tao Tia, a legendary man-eating beast. We know not its exact symbolism, nor that of dragons, cicadas, owls, and birds of great variety. They challenge our scholarship and imagination, for ancient art is inseparable from archaeology. Bronzes of later Chao are refined, full of intricate designs, but devoid of religious fervor. For this was the rational age of philosophers, of Lao Tzu and Confucius. The artist craftsmen used various materials, such as glass beads, to decorate the backs of bronze mirrors. And they created jade carvings for use as charms, ornaments, or burial pieces, for jade was both beautiful and symbolic of virtue and nobility. When the House of Chao became a figurehead, culture seemed to gravitate to the south, where these birds were found. Also found there were these painted wooden cranes, probably used as a drum rest. With coiled serpents under their feet, they were stylized yet naturalistic, and this stylized naturalism was to exert an influence on the coming age. The warring states in the late Chao period were finally unified by the western state of Qin, and the first Chinese empire emerged. Qin lasted for only a few decades. Its art, such as this mirror decorated with conventional dragons, was an extension of the late Chao style. But the unification of language and opening of roads laid a firm foundation for the House of Han, for which the Chinese named their race. This incense burner was probably inspired by the mystic Taoist religion prevalent during Han. With one arm, the boy genie holds up a mountain on which dwell wild beasts, now in recluse and now in struggle, but all full of vigor and life, the expression of an age of expansion. Similar motifs are seen in Han ceramics, enough of which remain in our day in the forms of mortuary figures, utensils and granary jars, glazed or painted, soft earthenware or hard stoneware. Han sculpture is lacking in detail, but powerful in total effect. Bears and horses were particularly popular and reflect the military vigor of Han's rule. In jade carving, the exquisite workmanship of late Chow was not lost, and Han jade stands as a distinct entity in the history of Chinese art. Animal motifs of the nomadic Central Asiatic peoples, such as this running deer in full round, which adorns a jade buckle, may have further enriched the vocabulary of Han jade carvers. History tells that painting was well developed in Han, although only fragmentary samples such as painted decorations on bronzes give us some indication of the brushwork. Curved lines full of movement spur us to dream about the great frescoes of portraits and religious and ethical illustrations said to have existed in palaces and temples. In the tombs of Han's outpost in Korea are preserved further traces of some ancient paintings in the form of lacquer decorations on a table. A Chinese invention, lacquer work of fine quality may be traced to the Chow dynasty and exists to this day. Through the ages, this medium has been used in sculpture, architecture, and household utensils. But on these tomb tiles, we come closest to seeing the Chinese painting's special concern with brushwork had already taken a firm root in Han. The strokes are calligraphic, and calligraphy is considered the twin of painting in China. Han's fame for bas-relief is in no small measure due to the panels of the Wu family tomb chamber. This is only a fraction of the panoramic portrayal of legends and historical figures. Revealing, indeed, is Han's conception of the origin of the world, the brother and sister Fu Si and Niu Hua with serpent bodies holding architect's triangle and compasses to build our world out of chaos. Chaos followed the last days of Han and made China a fertile ground for Buddhism, which prospered in this period, called the Six Dynasties. And by now, the Chinese had become accomplished sculptors with a strong flair for stylization, admirably illustrated by this lion. Then came the wave of Buddhism, embraced by the northern invaders who founded the Wei dynasty. This bodhisattva from the Yungang cave temples typifies the simple work of the faithful. Maitreya, the Buddha of the future, smiles on the multitude and preaches the way of enlightenment, and the great era of Chinese sculpture began. This votive stele exemplifies the Chinese conception of Indian deities, where the garments are billowing, unlike the tight drapes of Indian art. But Indian iconography remains in the gestures of hands, one signifying protection and the other charity. Beautiful gilt bronze pieces made for dedication to parents or superiors employed the great traditional skill of bronze casting for a new foreign religion. The engraved stone sarcophagus testifies to the continuous flow of Chinese culture, for here the low relief of Han is echoed, as well as the still older concept of filial piety. The filial son, Tung Yong, is rewarded by heaven in the person of a beautiful fairy, the weaving maid. This stele base is a contemporary piece on which is depicted an exalted personage in the role of donor of this sculpture. The richness of his retinue is matched by that of his wife, carved on another side of the same piece. From this, we may yearn for paintings of this era, recorded by history in glorious terms, but now lost. By now, Buddhism and the invaders were no longer foreign, and the stage was set for a new dynasty to unify China. Works in the cave temples continued. This colossal Buddha, originally 50 feet in height, but now half buried in the ground, was a Sui addition to the grandeur of Yungang. But the ideas of Buddha were engraved even deeper on the Chinese mind. All sufferings are due to human desires. He who ignores the self will gain enlightenment. And Buddha is enlightenment. Under Sui, trade and commerce made advancement to benefit the following Tang dynasty, the golden age of Chinese art and culture. Stylized naturalism marked the works of Tang. This battle charger in strong relief is a fine example. Wounded by arrows in service of the emperor, it remains strong and proud. Tang was a powerful and free age. Through new contacts with India, Buddhist art received a fresh impetus. The postures and modeling of figures showed greater variety and mastery. Guan Yin, the deity of mercy, became the favorite among Chinese people. For though the sea of suffering knows no bounds, you need but turn your head to look upon him, and there is land. The crossroad of the world was Central Asia, where this superb piece was found. Strongly Hellenistic, it must have influenced the Tang sculptors. Yet the Chinese transformed all foreign influences into something of their own. Enriched by new styles and new motives, all arts flourished, including ceramics, a sample of which is this pilgrim bottle decorated with grapes and Grecian figures. The people of Tang were vigorous and fun-loving. These polo-playing ladies were mortuary figures intended to accompany the dead. This, too, was a burial piece, but all faithfully portray the living of that time. Even the vase is a replica of contemporary ware. Decorated with dragon handles, the bulging form is typical of the exuberance of China's golden age, from which the Japanese borrowed heavily in art, costume, architecture, religion, and language. The noble and the wealthy were served with gold and silver cups, whence flowed the wines that inspired so many Tang poets to create the greatest verses of Chinese literature. Beautiful ladies were adorned with elaborate jewelry. This headdress might have graced the royal person of the Empress herself. It was an age of luxury, but not of decay. The themes of art, such as the decoration on this mirror, testify to the vigor of the times. Here, gallant riders are hunting for geese in the wilderness of the great northern plains. Under Chinese interpretation, Buddhism now divided itself into sects. While the masses worshiped the glorious images and believed in heaven, hell, and reincarnation, the intellectuals embraced the Chan sect to seek wisdom through meditation. Then the Tang dynasty disintegrated and was overthrown. For 50 years, 5 dynasties paraded the stage. Then in 960, an able general reunited the country to found the stable Sung dynasty. Chinese painting matured during Sung. Few originals of Tang are left to our day, but this Sung copy of a Tang design, a masterpiece in its own rights, reveals the great heritage of Sung painters. Chinese painting is basically the art of brush and ink, and the painter's view is greatly influenced by the Chan Buddhist ideal of merging oneself harmoniously with nature through meditation. Thus, in the best Sung landscape paintings, there's a sense of tranquility and of freedom from earthly bondage. The feeling of transcendence abounds in the sweeping view of mountains and rivers and of valleys leading to valleys beyond. In sculpture, such works as this ceramic lohan, as those Buddhists who have eliminated all worldly perplexities are called, testify to the persistence of Tang tradition in art. In the 12th century, the Sung army could no longer hold the north against invaders, depicted here in the act of looting civilians. Woe to the maiden who fell into the hands of the commander and was abducted to the north to live as his wife in a nomad's tent. In the land where grass and trees turn yellow before autumn, the sight of geese flying south deepened the sorrow and longing for a home. In the south, the Sung dynasty continued to produce great painters such as Liang Kai with his powerful and precise brushstrokes, or Ma Yuan with his mastery of atmosphere and space, who created a lyrical world that outlived his troubled times. Sung ceramics reached the zenith of nobility and sophistication. Porcelain, the greatest contribution of the Chinese potter to the world, was invented no later than Tang, but reached artistic maturity in Sung. To simulate the color and texture of jade was the potter's ideal, but the great variety of his work, some samples of which are shown here, reveal his attempts to exploit all other possibilities of the medium. Then the most civilized nation on earth was conquered by the great Genghis Khan. But the conquering Mongols were immediately vanquished by Chinese arts and letters. In painting, this was a creative age. With mastery of brush and ink, the landscape painters expressed their understanding of nature in the freest manner. Mountains and rivers were distilled through the hearts and minds of the artists and came out pure and clear. The interplay of calligraphy, poetry, and painting is unique in Chinese art. Plum blossoms, as painted here, together with the pine and the bamboo, have been poetically described as three friends of enduring character who can stand the test of winter. The rugged texture of the plum tree's trunk, the agility of its young branches, and the patterns of the blossoms are always a challenge to the Chinese artist. If Sung and Yuan were the age of maturity for Chinese art, then Ming was the age of refinement. Some of Ming's foremost artists, such as Wen Changming, who painted this landscape, were learned scholars. Their literary accomplishments, moral character, and philosophical maturity shine through the works. While others, notably Chou Ying, were real professionals who acquired unsurpassed facilities through learning from nearly all the masters of Tang and Sung. They formed a movement which revitalized the great heritage of the past. But the turning point of Chinese painting was hinged on men like Tung Chi Chang, whose group championed the theory of literary paintings and attempted to subordinate pictorial beauty and technical excellence to the expression of poetical ideas. This influence has lasted to our day. In the art of ceramics, cobalt blue, which was mostly imported from the Near East, gained favor above all others for underglaze painting, and the so-called Ming blue and white inspired potters all over the world. Later, other colored glazes such as yellow, iron red, turquoise, and so forth gained ground. Ming's activities in sculpture were extensive. This exquisite Buddhist figure in jade serves to indicate the accomplishment and refinement then prevalent. The tradition to stylize was as strong as ever. In the 17th century, a Ming general invited the aid of the Manchu tribe in quelling bandits, and the Manchus stayed to found the dynasty of Qing. The Manchu imperial taste in ceramics leaned toward extreme elaboration and technical excellence, and the Chinese artists were more than able to comply. Stately balusters such as this were decorated with birds and flowers, borrowed directly from the works of Sung's painting academies. And such variety. Early Qing polychromes and monochromes literally reflected all the colors of the rainbow, and they certainly played a part in stimulating the West to seek trade with China, the flowery kingdom whose very name implied porcelain. Still, it is in painting, perhaps, that the world will see the highest achievement in Chinese art, for this is the medium of greatest possibilities, into which philosophy, poetry, and calligraphy are merged. Here, man gives expression to nature in his most articulate moments. From the dawn of our historical times, man has been struggling against the elements, fellow men, or himself. But in the best of Chinese paintings, there is a glimpse of peace, of man's harmony with nature, expressed in a language developed through an unbroken tradition of centuries by the simplest of means, a brush, some ink, and sometimes bits of colors.